Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Profitable Steward podcast. My name is Jared Sorensen, and if you'll notice, you'll see a little bit of rebranding that we've done on our podcast images, and so still the same content. We're still grateful to be able to serve the regenerative agriculture community, and we're blessed to be here today with Shane Blakely. So Shane reached out to him. He was kind enough to jump on and do an interview for us all. I think I met Shane at a sale barn in Twin Falls, Idaho. He had his sell-by sheet out, and he was asking me about what we did. And I think you'd just been to, or you'd been watching Ann Barnhart at the time, right? Is that who you learned sell-by
Yeah,
marketing from?
yeah. We bought the videos, her video set, and
Yeah.
learned it from her.
So we've kind of been in similar circles, both through that ranching for profit and just in the regenerative agriculture circles. So grateful to have you. Shane, where are you from?
Originally Eastern Idaho, like Idaho Falls area. It's kind of where
Okay.
I grew up. Yeah.
Yeah, and where are you ranching now?
We are south of Twin Falls, about, I don't know, 15, 20 miles.
Cool. So we're almost neighbors here. As close as neighbors get here in the West. Like 2 hour
Yeah, close.
distance. We're pretty much neighbors. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I'd love to hear, Shane, how you got started ranching and kind of, well, first of all, what inspired you to be a rancher, and then how did you get started?
Uh, yeah, it's a super long story, but I'll try to
That's
narrow it down. I grew up in kind of by a single mother in low income housing type deal. Anyway, when I was about 12 or 13, eh, somewhere around there, I just for some reason wanted to be a cowboy. Like I lived in like an apartment building, and
huh?
saved up enough money, bought a cowboy hat. And anyway, it was more of like the romance part was living that in my head. And I did luck out. My grandpa had a few horses, kind of. So I learned how to ride at a young age once in a while. But anyway, that's what started me on that. Ended up trying to go to college at College of Southern Idaho, and I come up here and ended up working at a dairy for a couple of years. I really liked that, and I bought some like bottle calves, and so
Hmm.
we started raising some bottle calves just as a side deal. I mean, I was working 12-hour days probably at the dairy, and then feeding calves morning and night. Anyway, we built up enough of those. We kept some of them and got them bred, some of the heifers, and then sold them. And then I it gave me a little bit of money from selling bred heifers. And then I actually went to, I think it was Dale Evans Bank here in Idaho, and they gave me a note to buy some broken mouth cows.
Uh-huh.
And so I bought some cows out of, I don't know where they come from for sure, but like six or eight of them. I mean, we're talking, I'm like 19, 20 at the time, or I was pretty young, and
Yeah.
just found a place to stick them and kind of fed them through the winter, calved. And anyway, at that time, it just didn't matter. I was just going hard, just thinking it was cool. So from then on, we just built up. I've had partners and we've had cattle deals, and then, partnerships. There seems to be the only boat that doesn't float. And anyway, so they didn't quite work. I mean, they were good people. We just went separate ways after so many years. And yeah, and then I started cowboying on a mountain here in southern Idaho as a cowboy, and then some places that were here. I just got the word that I might be able, or like they were up for lease maybe, or somebody could kind of wiggle in there, and so I did. I leased a few of these little deals and bought some more cows, and then was on them for a little while, and I put together another one or two and started shoeing horses. I mean, I've been all over the place just trying to make a living. I had a little family going at the time, and so trying to make a living plus have this dream, grow this
Yeah.
dream on the side. Pretty demanding, but yeah. And then it was like I just couldn't really make things work very good financially. And I had a good friend that went to ranching for profit, and he kind of pushed me to go to that. And then after I got back from that school, I was gung ho again, and I went and cross fenced all the pastures. And anyway, we like it paid that year. We doubled the carrying capacity of this ranch pretty much just in being able to utilize the forage better. And
Cool.
so learning some of those and then just kept going kind of down. I mean, at the time they didn't call it anything. It was just like rotational grazing, and now there's so many different deals, mob grazing, regenerative ag, and like doing all these things. And we've
Yep.
tried a lot of those things and do quite a few of them. And then my knowledge was like, well, what else do I not know? And
Yeah.
so I've taken classes like Wally Olson's Cell Barn, and then I've done Ann Barnhart's videos. I've gone to Wally's class, and I traded cattle for quite a while. I haven't lately. We kind of got up to the numbers we have and found out I'm more of a cow calf kind of guy. I kind of like that versus just trading cattle all the time. And so, yeah. And then got into like Jamie Elizondo's, non-selective grazing. I would kind of push that the last few years, maybe not as hard. I built a
Mhm.
house, but we push that and try to mob graze, and that's a whole nother beast in itself. You got to have the right cattle for that kind of a deal, and
Yeah.
be on your game, to do that. So
Yeah. Yeah. It sounds like it's evolved and it's continuing to evolve. And so kind of
uh,
where are you at now? Are you at the place? I mean, this is what you're doing full time. And
no, no, to me, like, and I'm sure when you get big enough, I've worked. I mean, I've day worked at ranches and different places, or been on there full time.
Mhm.
And the way because of my unique experience through life, like not having that background of like grandpa did it this way or dad did, I kind of thought for myself about some of these things, and I watched like how some of these guys did things, more progressive ranchers, bigger ones, and they'd feed with like a TMR, like pairs, and calve in the winter or late fall, and some of the things we did, and I just got to learn that like I don't like that. Like it didn't work for me. I'm like, it was a lot of money. It took a lot of money and time. And then the results I didn't think were all that great. Like, I mean, they had a real nice calf crop, but I'm like, what is it? At what cost, And so yeah, I don't do it full time. It's to me like unless you got up to quite a few cows and like had them scattered everywhere, uh,
Mhm.
it's a part-time gig. And so I do have a consulting company. I write nutrient management plans for like feedlots and dairies. And
Right.
so between that and the ranch, I mean, I stay fairly busy.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. Makes
Yeah.
sense. Um, what so let's talk a little bit about the logistics of the ranch. You said you're a cow calf guy. Is that your core? Is that cow calf? Would that be what you'd call your centerpiece enterprise then?
Yeah, absolutely. The last few years, for sure, we kind of went down. I started keeping all my own heifers.
Okay.
Uh, we had a lot of bull fallout, like buy-in bulls. I call them store-bought bulls, like when you go get them from town, town type bulls. And we bring them and it's different for like you. I mean, I've kind of helped you guys a little bit or been down on your place down there a little.
Yeah.
Us is like you live in this, and like I've cowboyed here and not too far from here and then a little bit on the gamble, like out in the west though, in the bigger type landscapes, and you think that's the norm. And so what I noticed was that's just what we think of, like this rugged country I run in here. They just, to me, it's just normal that's what country is like. Well, I've since learned like not all cattle can handle that. Not all people have that kind of a landscape, And so I saw these purebred guys running cows on like irrigated grass and all the minerals they could have, and they only had to walk, 500 yards to water. And then I'm like, I taken that bull and I'm turning him out up here. He doesn't know where he's going. The smallest field's like 6 or 7 thousand acres, and it's rough,
Yeah.
like big topography, 1,700 foot elevation climbs just in a mile and a half, and so it's a lot of it's not really usable. But anyway, we just had a huge fall. Like the bulls wouldn't come home, just had a huge fallout. I've had some big open rates on that deal. It just hurt me. And Jamie Elizondo kind of helped me through some of that and like just keep your own bulls. And
Huh.
you've seen Detzman's stuff. I read his book. And so we kind of
Yeah.
followed the criteria. And that has changed a lot just those bulls, I think, being raised on that, and they traveled up there with their mother, and then they come home, and then when you turn them out, that's where they go back to, is kind of their home range, right? And
Mhm.
so it's helped us a lot. We haven't, I mean, it's 8 years into it now, or 7 years, somewhere like that. And all our home raised bulls have always come home. I haven't lost a bull on the range.
Yeah.
And so we started doing that with the cows. I mean, you lose a cow once in a while to things, but so that's what kind of kept me like I need to go in one direction. And I was trading cows and bringing them and trying to run them up here, and the learning curve was too steep. I was trying to run yearlings down on the meadows and stuff in the summer. Well, then it kind of cheated me out of winter feed for the cows in the winter because you use some of it up. And so then it was like, well, we'll just go this direction and kind of stick with this plan. And so we keep all our heifers, we expose them. Ones that get bred, we calve them. If they don't, we sell them, and keep our own bulls. And it's worked really good. I'm a little afraid, genetic wise, who knows, we might end up in a wreck. But I use Zetzman's criteria on selection of those, which is like the most fertile heifers, or the 2+3s, as you'll hear them called. And then we mark them or get them memorized somehow, and then
Yeah.
keep bulls out of them. And then we go through a selection criteria on that. And anyway, it's worked out that way. That's been a big bonus for us lately.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. That is pretty cool. That's, years ago, you'd have been scoffed at for doing that. And now it's kind of neat how it's come back around. Maybe that is a better way, especially on some of this rugged country. So we certainly saw that, on the, when we had the big DLM allotment and bringing in bulls that had been grain fed or even supposedly forage finished bulls, and they just would fall apart. So tell us a little bit more about what you look for in in a cow and in a bull. I mean, on the replacement heifer, are you just looking for ones that breed back and breed back early and stay in the herd? Are you looking at phenotype? Let's talk about the female side first and then the bull side.
yeah, and I mean, here's what I've kind of learned is when you're younger, you think like when I was like 20, I was like, oh, I can pick them, and I'd only been in the cow world for a while, but I was so confident in myself. I was like, oh, that's a good heifer. Well, she'd be good. And we've done that. And I kept this. I remember I had a really nice cow. She just was real kind of heavy, short and heavy. I've always kind of been into smaller type cattle because I just noticed they do better. They just
Yeah.
don't come home as thin or whatever. They just seem to do better. And so our cows are small. They're like 1,000 pound. I mean, that would be an average, and which in my area is really small. All these
Yeah.
guys have
I know.
1,500 pound cows. But anyway, I guess that's why I like Zetzman's program. It takes the emotional part of it out of it. Like me thinking that's a good one. To me, it's kind of like testing, when they test military guys and make them run, or like the NFL, they have to do a 40-yard dash in so much time, right? You need to get bred in this amount of time, and then you need to be able to keep flesh on as you grow older. You just need to get rebred and raise a decent calf. You can't raise the dink. And so what I found is that the things I thought were important when I looked at them when they're 6, 7 months old have no bearing on whether they'd be a good cow or not. And so
Uh-huh.
what I've liked about this program is it takes that out. You just have certain criteria that they have to meet, and then it just rolls on. But I have noticed shorter cows, I like them with a little bit of a tilt in their pelvis, if that makes sense. I don't like them real straight pelvis. Um, yeah, they need to be feminine looking. I just noticed those ones seem to do better. Not a lot of milk. So
Uh,
yeah, on those, and then the heifers, like I said, and then the way the bull criteria is on those 2+3s. So the year they're raising a calf, the ones that get bred the soonest, that's who we keep calves out of, and that helps with the fertility. And
okay, so explain that 2+3 concept there.
so the 2+3 is like, so this is what I do, or my understanding of it. So say a heifer calves, and say I had a heifer calf. We're not supposed to start till yesterday. But anyway, say I had a heifer calf on the first. I just write
Mhm.
those heifer numbers down and the date they calved. And then what happens is that I keep track of in that first cycle. So say next year, these heifers that are calving now, in the first cycle, I'll write down any of those cows that calved, the heifers, and then I see which ones calved in that first cycle. So that meant they got bred right away, right? I mean, they're calving in the first part of the cycle, so they're pretty feminine as 3-year-olds, right? They're calved again in that first
Right.
part of the cycle. So then I just use that number. Some guys brand them. I just have the number. And this year we'll probably do a little something different with tags. But then you can select bulls from them. And what I typically do is just go out. I'll get one of my boys to help me. And after the first cycle is over, we go out and I just put the cows in the corner, do whatever. We catch those calves and tag them with a number. And so all these number tag calves were the first cycle calves. Then you can kind of
Okay.
trace a little bit to where they come from. But then when they become the bulls, they go up on the mountain, come home as bulls. And it helps when we brand. I guess let me go back a little bit. When we tag them with a number, so they were the first cycle calves. And then when I brand, any of those that already have a tag, because the rest of the calves aren't tagged, we only do the first cycle ones. But if they have to tag them, they cut them, if that makes sense. So then the ones already with the tag don't get cut because those are our bull selection ones.
Okay.
And yeah, and then when we come home in the fall, the bulls that were selected, right, they have a number in their tag. The rest of them just have a blank tag. And
Okay.
And we tag because we run an association, and it just helps identifying those cattle a little bit. Some of these guys,
Yeah.
We do brand, but anyway, it just helps more. So then as a yearling, we just go through, and the ones that are the heaviest per inch of height, that's the selection we make. And I've gotten a little pickier now. If they look like, we had one that he had pretty good numbers that way and is out of a really good cow. She's always calved in the first cycle, but they're just ugly. Like their heads are ugly. And I hate that part of it, but it's like we have enough of them now that I can select a little more for other things. And so he had skurs too. And I just not a big fan of horns. You might as well, if I'm going to go pulled, they might as well just be pulled, right? So that's what we do on the bulls and as a yearling. And then you can get it the first year, it sucked. I think I kept 14 or 16 bulls. I think we ended up with 2 that went back out because it was just like, no, this guy didn't meet that criteria. This guy didn't, and even those 2 weren't that great. And I bought a Pharaoh bull, and he really changed our program, made those cattle so much better. And I just that one. And anyway, but we just kept rinse and repeat, right? And now we have a fairly good selection of them. They're not big. You're not going to win prizes. The neighbors I run with are kind of like, but mine are always heavier. Like when they come off the mountain, they're good flesh, like really good. And these other guys, their bulls will be thin if they come home, and so it's like, to me, it shows something. They are smaller, but anyway.
Yeah.
So that's on the bull side, I guess, is the selection of the bulls.
No, that's cool. That's pretty neat to see that you've got a track record now and you know that it works. It's not just one of those concepts that, hey, maybe it'll work, maybe not. So do
Yes.
you feel like, from your perspective, having gone through it now for several years, is that a practice that you would recommend for anybody that's in the cow-calf business? Or do you feel like that is like, who would it apply to be able to save their own bulls?
Well, I think everybody. And one way is like when I was first hearing about it, I was like, well, how do you cash flow keeping like 10-year bulls? I mean, as a first generation guy, like things are kind of tight, right? Or everybody's things are tight. And it's like what I found is I said we could spend, I had budgeted like 3,000 for a bull. And usually it's every other year, then I can actually buy something decent. But it was like that 3,000, those calves were only worth at this time like $700. And so I was like, well, I can keep several of them bull calves and just not buy a bull. You see what I'm saying? So the cash flow part, it didn't hurt as bad. And then once you have like selling them at 4 and 5, I mean, we're getting like $2,000 for those bulls or more than that, selling them now. And so to me now it works really good once you're in it, just like the heifers, keeping all your heifers. It takes that first 2 years. Once you're in it, and then you got a lot more cattle rolling back out to help pay some bills. It makes it worth it. As far as like little, I mean, if you're like like an irrigated guy or something, or you have, littler fields, maybe it's not that big of a deal for them. But
Mhm.
I know, or at least in my vision and been around at different ranches, it's a big deal for like bigger country type ranches. Bulls know where to go. They come home. When you go to trail them out, they know what's going on, right? I just drop them off in the canyons in June and go up there and open the gate of horseback. I mean, they're going. They know what's going on. The yearling bulls are just kind of following behind, but the mature bulls know what's going on, and so it works. I think better probably for like rougher country type ranches.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. Appreciate you sharing about that. Shane, what other things have you changed as your business has evolved, or are there any other areas that maybe you're the contrarian, kind of bucking the system a little bit?
I don't know about that. The cross fencing was a big deal. Uh, when I took this deal over, or one of these places, it came with some cows that I leased, and they
Uh-huh.
calved into 7. And as we all know, that first year was a wreck. And back in those days, it wasn't like I would be out there working hard, but I remember being at Christmas, my kids were young, and it was cold and blizzard in it. And I had those cows. I used to just cow jippo, as they call it. I'd find farmers that would let me fence off their fields and pay them a little something, and run cows on there all winter. And that's what I would do all winter with, I mean, at that time, maybe 80, 90 cows, and run them to different fields, and try to just, so I didn't have to feed, try to stay away from that. Well, I took those, they were like December calving cows, and it just was a mess. I mean, it was a wreck. They'd freeze the ground. It was just like they needed to be in a barn somewhere, really, because it was just a real cold spell. It was at Christmas, and I was out there with calves in the pickup, warming them up, and the kids were wanting to play. And anyway, I was just like, well, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not going to do this. And I talked to them, and they're like, you do what you feel needs best done. And so we moved them to as late as about I can on this mountain, because everybody else's bulls are on it, which is about the 1st of June. And I guess what helped me to that is I bought a set of cows once a calf in April, and like didn't do anything. Calves hit the ground, right? And it was like you drove there and looked at them. I'm like, yeah. And I'd worked at ranches that calved in January and February, and it was like you had to fight all the stuff, right? And it was just a pain. With those April calvers, I had no trouble. The calves just hit the ground and ripped, and I was like, that's the way to go. And so that's what kind of pushed me for that. That was a big, to me, it's a must. Like if I go to any ranch, they just needs to be in warm weather. When you calve,
Yeah.
it's a big major deal to me.
Yeah. So if you did run all your own and you weren't having to run in common, would you switch your calving date?
Absolutely. I'd go to like probably May.
Uh-huh.
Even if I could run privately on this mountain, like or just so their bulls wouldn't mix with mine later in that. Because it just felt like if I didn't turn mine out later, their bulls would have been in the area some of the time, and not always. And so it's kind of hard to do that on this. But if I was just privately, absolutely, I'd calve on the mountain in May, and then
Mhm.
go up there and brand in like June or July, and yeah, because just the live calf, the less labor. I mean, I watch these guys like on TikTok and YouTube, and they're like making it look like they're just really being hardworking guys, which they are. Don't get me wrong, I guess. It's almost self-inflicted, because it's like just hold the bowl off and you don't have
Yeah.
to do anything. The days are longer, and they're like, and I guess some of these guys or that I chat with about things, and I'm like, they'll be like, well, we just feed our cows in the evening because it makes them, cows get fed later, typically calve in the day. And I'm like, well, why do you need to do that? I mean, they already know why. It's because it's so cold at night, or can be, and you can't, they'll might freeze down. And I'm like, you just calve them later. All you got to do is pull the bull. It doesn't cost anything, but they'll fight you tooth and nail on this calving in the winter deal. They'll just fight you. And I mean, we still calve in the winter, I guess, because spring's March 20th,
Sure.
and so anyway, that is a must, I think, is you need to be later than March, I believe, it just takes so much work out of it, the labor, the stress on you, the stress on the animals. So
Yeah, in these northern cold climates, it just seems to make sense. What do you um Kit Farrell's been on a couple of our deals before, and the first time he spoke was right in the middle of the winter of 2023, the winter from Hades, when everybody had deep snow, losing not only calves but cows. I mean, it was tough. It was tough, and my heart goes out to people. We looked really smart because we're custom grazers, and we didn't have anything on the ranch other than just a few cows. But there's always a balance, I guess. What are the arguments for calving in the winter? Like when you get that pushback, is it weaning weights? Is it what what
So,
makes you think it has to be done then?
I mean, I can only tell you that guys, like we run in common with quite a few guys, and they're fall calvers. The big reason is, and this is the one that makes me laugh is that, well, I would say laugh, and it's in their head, and I shouldn't poo-poo on it or however you want to say it, but it's one of them is getting their calves branded. They want their calves branded when they go out.
Uh-huh.
Uh, Two is if they calve in like October, November, October, we're still coming off the mountain. So some of them try to calve in November. Well, one, they're in trouble going on to the forest because that calf's too old, theoretically, but we won't get into that. But anyway, they get to breed to their own bulls, right? Which is a huge plus. I could see that. It is a big, big plus. Uh, and then heavier weaning weights. They think, to me, weaning weights just time, right? But anyway, they think they're heavier, which maybe I don't know that they are, to tell you the truth. My March calves will be, 150 pounds of the average on some of these November calving guys, maybe 200. But it's like I don't have anything in them. I didn't do anything. Those guys fed a lactating cow all winter. It's just different. But that's the big merits. I've often told people, like, if the government, say just the government, would pay you $5,000 for every dead calf, no questions asked, you just had to show them a dead calf, when would you calve? And it kind of flipped it. And like I did this at one of Jamie's classes, and most of those guys were like probably January, because like, how many of them are gonna, if there's no man intervention and they would just pay you, all you had to do was show it. And I mean, it's kind of a mean way to put it, but a lot of them would calve at that time. And
Yeah.
I mean, because if you calve in June, how many of them are going to die? I mean, not very many. And
Yeah.
we know that, or July, or August, or September, October even's okay. But then you just get into other things, like you have to feed a cow, or you try to run that cow on range with a lactating calf. At least in our country, what I know, I mean, it's pretty tough. It's gonna be hard to get her bred. It's just tough. I mean, I know you could go probably Missouri, maybe it's awesome, probably there, but here it's just tougher.
Yeah. So you're calving March, April, and then when do you pull the calves off and wean and
Like, trying to think, November. One year I kept them on because I thought, well, we'll try this, and kept them on till I think it was the end of January. They kind of pulled those cows down so much for the way I run them. I mean, we're running on like cheatgrass hills all winter, and
yeah.
it just pulled those cows down so much that I like when they went to calve again, they were just kind of in pretty poor condition, like threes and fours and buck. And it was just like made me feel bad because I'm like people driving by and you got this thin cow with a calf sucking on her, and you're like, but that was from a lot of that doing was from the year before. And did I gain that much more gain on those calves? I didn't.
Mhm.
So now we just, as soon as I get most all of them home, and it takes till maybe November 15th, somewhere in there, usually in November. It's a bad time to sell. Kind of the economics of things, it's like I don't really want to carry all those calves through the winter. And so we just, once all our cattle are gathered in, so that I can sell a decent package of calves. So November, yeah, later
Yeah.
November.
Okay. Yep. So you will sell all your steers at that point. In November, you're keeping all your heifers and your bulls through that next winter and exposing
Yes.
heifers and probably everything other than dinks or whatever that might need to come off. You're going to keep them, expose them. Um, cool. Yeah. So on that,
Yeah. And the bulls run with their bulls. So the yearling bulls just get kicked in with the bulls.
oh,
And
okay. So
and they'll be a little rough, like, because I'm a big proponent of, I don't like to have several groups of cattle.
yeah,
One, it takes me too much time, and I'm like, it's just if I got to run and check this or check that, and I don't spend that much time on them, but it just drives me nuts if I have like three groups of cows. I've done that before, and it's just like burns up your day trying to get around to look at them. It's like if I have them all in one place, so I leave the bulls or with the cows till like, when did I pull them? Well, I mixed the heifers back in, so I weaned for about 60. maybe 75, 80 days. I don't know. And then I put the heifers back with the cows. The heifers, my heifers right now, the ones that will get bred this spring, they're back out with the cows. Cows are starting
Oh,
to calve. I pulled the bulls so they wouldn't, I mean, they probably
but
wouldn't breed those little heifers, but I pulled them anyway. And so I do have two separate herds, the bulls and but the heifers run with the cows and then the yearling bulls run with the bulls and they just have to figure it out. They have to kind of tough it
okay.
out.
Yeah.
And
So
so
do you pull your yearling heifers and breed them separate? Do they stay with you?
no,
Okay. You calve your heifers out, or they calve with cows?
yeah, my heifers calve with cows. Like I had a couple cows calve and one heifer was with them and she'd calved. Yeah, out on the brush. And
Yeah.
it's just one of those, it's my management style. I guess it's probably not the best, but we've gotten, and you have to have kind of a special bunch. I wouldn't say special cows that can calve on their own and take care of them.
Yeah.
And then smaller calves. I know some of these guys, I see the circle bending again now to bigger calves, because they wean a little heavier. They're not so hard in the cold. They're a little bit tougher in the cold. And I'm like, if you run a desert deal or not, and we're not even that raw hide, but I'm like, if you calve out anywhere where you can't get to them for very often, a smaller calf wins every time. I'd rather have a 70-pound calf, even in 60s, but a little calf gets up and runs off with his mom, you know, that's a bonus, right? You never do nothing, off they go.
Yeah. 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 But light small live calf's worth a lot more than a dead big one.
Right, absolutely.
So
So,
okay, so you expose those heifers, then they, I mean, from the time they're weaned and go back with the cow herd, they're with the cow herd. You pull your opens off that next fall.
so no, so at branding, we like I quit preg checking a few years ago just because the vet was usually wrong and my management style is hard to get kind of labor to do it all. And
Okay.
and so I was like, well, how am I going to handle this? And so this is just, I've only done it for the last couple of years. And so what it is at branding time, before we brand calves, I have the guys or me and a few guys, we just get them in a trap, right? And we're going to brand. I just have them pull dries off. So
Okay.
any dry cow, and I know there's differences in generations on dry cows, but to me, a cow that's not nursing a calf at the time, she might be pregnant, she might be gonna, but my rule is just at that time, just anything that doesn't look like she's nursing, pull her right now. We put her in a pen there, and then they stay the night in that pen, and we get done branding because it usually only takes us a day, right? So we brand them, kick the calves back into the meadows there where they are, let everything mother up. I leave those cows in that trail 24 hours just in case one of the dudes messed up or I messed up. And I think in the last one cow might have been, we had kind of a swap-roo, but whatever, it's easy to fix, bam. And then I haul those cows because it's only about 4 or 5 miles and usually there's not like a ton, but I'll just
Yeah.
haul them back down to the lower place and then we run them till about July. And if they haven't calved, the ones that do calve, to get them marked and then I'll haul them and just put them up on the mountain is what I've done the last 2 years. And then the ones that don't at all, I just sell them.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So
So that controls the open cow deal, right? And so even cows that lost a calf at calving, they're dry by then. They
yep.
get pulled, and so it just cleans that deal up.
Mm-hmm. And so your heiferettes then technically would run an extra, if they didn't breed, they would run an extra year or half a year. I don't know. So
No,
coming, they're coming through the winter. They're exposed in June. If they didn't get bred, they would run open until that
oh,
next
what you're saying,
spring.
yes,
They would, all, but they're
you
still going
didn't
to be
pray.
bred. They're still going to bring a premium right at that point, and they're probably going to be sloppy fat. You ran them super cheap, so it's not.
So no, so the heifers that no, right, heifer would have calved in March,
Mm-hmm.
and so when we brand in say April, I think it's like the 24th. There's somewhere around there is usually when we brand because we turn out after that. Any of those heifers that lost a calf or didn't, oh, I see what you're saying, didn't breed. Yeah. Anyway, all the dries get pulled in. So
Yeah, and then you'd be able to market those young ones probably separate, or even if you send them to the sale
yes.
barn, they're gonna
And tell you the
their
truth, we don't
heifer
have,
price is not a cold cow price. Likely they're gonna bring a premium. So
Yes. And they're
So
usually
even,
in really good shape by July, really good shape. They're fat. So,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
that, how do you market your cattle? What
I
have you
just
found?
take them to Twin Falls Livestock. It
Okay.
seems, yeah, seems to be, I mean, it's a big market.
Yeah.
Um, we do pretty good. That's what we've done. We've tried to sell grass finished meat for years
Uh-huh.
and for years, that's kind of a hit or miss deal. And so, yeah. So we haven't, last year I haven't at all. Well, I built a house, kind of quit some of those things that weren't doing real good for us, kind of just dropped them, just didn't do them. So we don't
Yeah.
do that anymore.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Um, so it sounds like if we look at the drivers of profitability, um, number one being like reducing overheads, increasing your gross margin or improving your turnover. Which one would you say has made the biggest difference for you?
Hmm. I think increasing turnover and how that come was moving the calving date, right? Because it gave me more, I wasn't losing. Plus
Yeah. Yeah.
lower overheads. You weren't using a pickup out, so much at night and checking things like I don't check them at night. So I'd say that uh lowering some direct costs on like fencing and being able to pick up that much more cow days the acre. I mean, we
Mhm.
doubled it. To me, that was huge. Uh, so those are kind of the big ones. Then you get into me genetics. Then you can kind of get into some genetics of cattle that can do more on less theoretically, and less work.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So on that subject of profitability, the last multi-day events that we've done an informal poll and we've asked people what's their biggest concern right now. Most of them are livestock producers, and profitability is ranked number one amongst the different multiple choice list. From your perspective, I know there's every context is different, every business is different, every management style is different, but um, I see some of your comments and things on the um, forums and stuff online and on Facebook, and it seems like you're a thinker about that. And well,
I
I'd
don't know.
love to get your opinion on why do you think that is? I mean, we're a record high. We're doggone, you can sell a calf for $2,000, and like whoever thought we'd see that. Um, why is it that as an industry we're concerned about profitability in these record high markets?
Well, and like you said, everybody's scenario is different. I think the reason that, like, because sometimes I'll say that's just hard to be like profitable, and it's because, like, what do they say? The numbers or the figures never lie, but sometimes liars figure. And so, like on me, maybe I'm not charging enough for my labor. I know I'm not charging the rightful amount on my labor. So, like, you're cheating corners is what I find on some of these ranches. They cheat certain things and they're not paying like the true value of what it would be. And of course, at these better prices, you should be better. But I think and then it's the hang up of like, you don't know. Like, I got a son that has an excavation business and I got a son that started an electrical business. And then to watch them versus our ag, like the ranch deal, like they talk to me, they know what they're gonna make on that job. When they do the job, I mean, they do a bid or whatever, and they kind of know, and there still can be some flip flop here or there, like it ended up taking more parts or a little bit more labor. They already have it nailed down. And like us, I mean, and a year out, they're talking like my boy with the excavation, they're talking a few days and it's bam, bam, transaction, cash flow. We know what we made. Oh, that didn't work out. We'll have to charge a little more on the next job. But we're hanging out a year. And so to me, it's that we don't control that. It'd be awesome if ag would control the price of what they're selling their product for, not just going to town and being like, what are you giving me for it? You're just so out of it's so hard, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know
Yeah.
if that answers your
What
question. So,
It does. I think you're spot on. I mean, you'd be surprised at how many multi-million dollars, which with land values, right? It's not hard to be a multi-millionaire and really not own that much land. But you think, okay, what other multi-million dollar business owner doesn't know their cost of production? But in agriculture, you probably ask 10 ranchers, and I'll bet you might be lucky if you get one of them that says, yeah, this is what it costs me to raise a pound of calf. This is my break even. This is where my
Oh, I
profit
bet.
will be this year.
Yeah. I bet you couldn't find in 50, I bet you couldn't find one that figured out per cost of, per pound of calf raised, most of them I know, the only way they would tell if they got serious with you, and I've talked to a few guys that we run in common with, and they'll have to do it right there in front of you. And you'll be amazed at what the numbers they come up with. Well, I got 2 ton of hay and then, it costs so much to run them out on the permit. And that's all they figured. And I'm like, well, what about the pickup? Well, we use the pickup on the farm. And you're like, what about the loader you use to load the hay? And they're like, well, that's on the farm. And I'm like, well, what about the labor? What about the horses? You got a few head of horses and somebody shoes them. Oh, I don't know. We just farm pays for that. And so it's like, whoa, dude, you need to put some of these costs in there, and so yeah, most of those cow deals aren't that shiny, and they think they're making all that money, and I'm like, you're not, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just the guy figuring the numbers. You got to be tight on them.
Yeah.
So.
What has helped you to keep a handle on numbers? Do you use software? Are you running projections? What spreadsheets? What do you?
Yeah, I've done spreadsheets and we even after Ranching for Profit, me and Buddy, he had a program. He actually wrote it where he could put all that stuff into it. And I know you guys have worked on something similar, you were saying, but and we throw those numbers in there and I just do a simple budget. I guess it's just how my brain works. I just
Yeah.
kind of budget what it costs every year and have that outlaid ahead of time. I used to keep track like Ranching for Profit did, like what you expect it to be and then come back and put actuals in. I tried doing that, but it ended up just being, and I should have worked on it harder, but I guess going through that process made me think more about it. And so I just I write them down a piece. I know that's pretty simple, but I write them down on a piece of paper, what everything is. And then a lot of times in the fall, we go over like actuals and be like, I need to cut this, or we need to, this needs to come down a little bit. We don't need to spend that much on mineral, maybe we can tidy it up a little bit there, this or that. My direct costs are not the problem. It's overheads, which I'm sure you see with most ranches. It's direct costs are not really a big deal. But
Yeah, especially where you're not really feeding hay on your deal, right? So
no.
that's the
So we supplement 3 times a week from like January till March, 10 pounds a head. I mean, and not always do we do that, but so and it matters how open it is. And then if we do go full ration feeding, it's like straw with that. I feed straw. I just bale graze straw, just stick it out there,
Mm-hmm.
and then yeah, supplement 3 times a week with 10, 12 pounds of alfalfa. And then I do make a nitrogen based, fertilizer based lick, kind of helps them break down that stuff.
Uh-huh.
And I'm not real good at that. I think they call it something brewers, something. Or anyway, that's a whole nother deal. I probably shouldn't even talk on that. That could, because it can kill cows. You got to be kind of careful. But we've had good results. So
Just because of the urea or the NPN in it,
yeah,
the
helps
non-broken.
with that. Helps so they can break that forage down, right? So and it's a lot cheaper than, and like I got a calculator on my computer on figuring pounds of protein per, what you're paying per pound of protein. And
Yeah.
alfalfa almost always wins, like versus liquid tubs, alfalfa, and to me, you're getting 10 pounds. So I do that 3 times a week. That's a cow day. I mean, I know it's stupid, but it's cow day. And
Yeah.
so for every 100 cows, that's 300 cow days a week you're picking up, or one. So that's 100. Anyway,
Yeah.
so it does little things like that, I think are worth it to me. Cows do better when I feed them a little bit of alfalfa. They just do so much better. And it's cheap
Yeah.
per pound.
Yeah. If you've got the ability to be able to get to them and uh yeah.
Yes.
In some
Yeah.
in some scenarios, the blocks and tubs, if they're in remote and you can only get there once a month or whatever, every couple of weeks, that's
Right.
different
No,
animal.
yeah, and I understand. Yes, for
But yeah,
sure. And everybody's Yeah, so don't take what I'm saying. It's unique here is I have a little bit of flat ground in a lot of the fields, so I can kind of get there and feed them, but I know what you're talking about, deals where clear out there, and you can't get to them in the winter. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is work for me. You can pull bits and pieces from it and
Yeah.
see
And
what happens. So
that's what's valuable. I think what you said there is knowing your numbers, knowing your costs. That's critical in any business. And as this whole inflationary period that we've been in since COVID, I think it's even more important to know that, because that's the one thing that we can control. On one end, if we're direct marketing, we can control the price that we're getting, but there's definitely some complexities to that, as you've found out and we've found out from doing it. So the other thing that you can control is your input costs and as best you can your overhead. So, well, Shane, um, it's been a great interview. Just I love talking to people who come from different perspectives, and I think having
yeah.
yours, where maybe you didn't grow up in the industry, uh, perhaps you've been able to challenge some of those paradigms that those of us who did grow up in it just think, well, that's just the way it is or the way it has to be. Um, we get a lot of questions at Ag Steward about how do I get started ranching? That was one of the reasons that I felt like I should reach out to you. I didn't know your full story, but I think there's a lot of value in saying, hey, yes, it can be done. What would you say would be your recommendations to other people that are in your situation, that they like cows, maybe they like horses? How do I get started doing this?
Yeah, for one, like I wanted to be a cowboy, right? And then when I started cowboy, I was like, well, I want to be a cowman and have cows and range. And I did before that. We had bottle calves, that I told you. And but when you get into it, the cowman part of it or the owner, I wouldn't even say that, the kind of owner of it, it's a whole different world, as versus cowboying. Like I cowboyed on the gamble down there, kind of by you guys, for
Yeah.
a summer. I just went out on the wagon to brand calves. And dude, that was like one of the funner deals of my life because I just went home. I left one of my boys with the ranch here, and it was summertime, so it was just changing water. You could just change water on the meadows, and then cows were out. But it was like when you were done that day, we'd brand calves. When you're done, you're done. It was over. But this, like when you have your own deal, there's worrying about, cash flow, worrying about everybody borrow money. Are the cows going to make it? Where are they? Did they get out? I mean, all these things that you take home with you that you didn't on that. So I guess what I would say is that make sure that's something you want. If you want to be a cowboy, and I hated this when Ranching for Profit said it, when they said, if you want to be a cowboy, go get a job in town. I'm
Yeah.
like, that always bothered me. And now that I got older, I'm like, there's kind of a lot of truth to it, and because I don't get it right all the time. I need to figure some other things out. But if I was a young guy starting over now, a few things that I would try to do, I'd probably try to find an older couple or whatever that doesn't have a lot of labor. You're just gonna have to go knock on doors. I didn't have the confidence then that much. I'd knock on doors with farmers that had like hay fields that were kind of tall, to graze cows on them. But I wish I would have thought a little bigger and went to
Yeah.
them and just been like, hey, I'll come and help you, Calvin, I'll fix your fence, we'll figure out a going rate. Let me run 10 cows and you just pay to run them for me. And I get 10% of the calf crop and or my 10 cows, they'll sell with yours, the whole management the same. I've kind of thought about it. We'll just run my cows in with yours and the management's all the same. And you just cut me a check when we sell them. And the sell barn will do it. Just take my 10 head off, and send me the check for that. And I'll fix so many hours of fence, or I'll come and help with this, or help you irrigate, And then you can
Yeah.
learn a lot of things working side by side with that guy. And there's a lot to that. You can learn a lot of probably bad habits too, but you can learn a lot of good stuff, That would be one of my number one deals. If you got to go total cold turkey, it's going to be tough because it's a pretty steep learning curve and you need a place to put them. So yeah, it'd be renting a little something, put together a couple cows. I would suggest find some real tame kind of cows if you're super green at it, and then run them on somebody's pasture and figure the numbers. And it's going to be tough, because when you're running 5 head, it's not going to pay for your labor at all. It's barely going to pay for, the cost of running them.
Yeah.
So, but that's what I would suggest. try to stay, you can't buy land. I don't think you can buy land and buy cows. It's pretty tough to buy land, especially in our environment out here now. I don't know if it was ever easy, to tell you the truth, but it's tough.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. It is a challenge. I don't know. Wally Olson predicted that at some point, you know, that value will come back to where it's more in line with the production value. But right now, there's so many other things pushing the value of land up. We encourage the same thing. Just start off leasing. Even now, leasing can be pretty tough because the commodity prices are high, so people are willing to pay a lot, and there's other values out there that they're getting besides just the, you know, with drought insurance and other things that they may be able to collect on besides just the calf check. So um,
right. Yep,
it's
for sure.
it's never been easy, but what makes you stay in it? What
I
keeps
don't
you
know.
driven?
My wife says something's wrong with me. Like, I don't know. I guess I really enjoy it. I like, I mean, I kind of like I don't know. I can't tell you. It's like something that's just there. I just enjoy having it. Like I going through them and doing things. Like I like the way we run up on the mountain. I've been blessed with a lot of the places I've taken over. I kind of could just add my own management. They just said, yeah, try not to tear the place up, you know. And I usually do cash leases, and I don't like the share crop deal. It just never. We did it once or twice, and it probably because we didn't have things nailed down enough. But yeah, I don't know why I just really enjoy it. And I like seeing the new calf crop come on and the phases of it. You know, all the phases of the seasons. And so yeah, I wish I had an answer, but I don't.
Yeah, I think those of us that are in it, we all feel that too. You know, there's probably easier ways that we could go and make a living, but yet there's something about it that kind of ingrained in us. And it is a good livelihood. It is a good place to raise a family. It's a good place to live. It's definitely a lot of blessings that we have because of where we live and how we live and what we do. Um, Plenty of challenges as we've talked about too. But so yeah, as we
Yes.
kind of as we wrap things up here, I always like to ask a couple questions like who've been your mentors? Who are the people that have been influential in your life and getting you up to this point?
There's been a lot of them, to tell you the truth, and uh, I'd say the one that first tripped me a little bit was probably Pharaoh's deal. Somebody
Mm-hmm.
gave me like he used to have like a newspaper deal. I can't remember. Somebody talked about him somewhere. Way, this has been a long time ago. And I went on his webpage and read his stuff. And I was like, it was so in line with my own thoughts. Like a cow should earn her own living, you know, and shouldn't have to pamper her and all these. And I was like, dude, who is this guy? And so just he was one of them, I would say, just got me started in the thinking and like would throw things out. I've had a lot of guys that I guess got an education from. You know, Jamie Elizondo's really good. I've read Zetzman's book or Zeitzman's, however you say it. And I'm trying to think. Wally Olson was good. Ranching for Profit. I mean, all those things influenced me. I've had a good neighbors. Mentor on my cowboy inside was David Crockett, and he had a little ranch here, and I lease it from him. And
Huh.
he was good to ride with, and me and him worked together for 10 years, you know, and or more. And so some of those were my mentors, and he was good to talk to about things. But you know, I'm glad you brought that up. That's if you're a young person trying to get in this, that's probably like it's probably one of the main things. We need coaches, I think. And like you see professional, somebody put it to me like you see professional football players say, or basketball, whatever it is, but they usually have a coach. And like we watch Super Bowl and they have like five coaches for just, you know, two dudes on defense and two dudes on offense and then the main coach, right? And who knows what's behind, like all the structure behind there for these guys. And I'm like, how about if I would have had two people behind me like every day, just being like, dude, how about if we do this and cash flow better? What if we did, you know, I didn't. And a lot of it is like kind of a loner anyway, but yeah, you need a mentor, I guess is what I'm getting at. Find a good one, somebody you can talk with, somebody that's been through the ringer a few times, you know, and they can help a lot. So, or even like your stewardship program. I don't, those guys probably get together and talk about things. I think that's very helpful. It was with Ranching for Profit, super helpful to have those guys look in and be like, dude, you're dumb. Why are you doing this? You know, why are you doing this? You should do more of that. And anyway, it's really good. So
Yeah, that's good. That's something that we believe in. We teach our children something that Ag Steward is based on is, the difference between an amateur and a professional is that professionals have coaches. But yet
yeah.
in agriculture, we think, you're just a dumb rancher. You should be able to figure this out. And as you've talked about, the level of complexity of running a ranch, even without huge diversity of enterprises, there's still a lot of complexity. And then you start adding direct marketing and multi-species and different locations and managing personnel. Um, I would say it's right up there with any other profession as far
Oh, it's
as,
more. I worked for the state, like to get this nutrient management deal that I do. I worked for the state, and I still ran this ranch when I worked for the state. And it was when I went to the state, all I did was write nutrient management plans. I met with the producer, got all the numbers and everything they needed. Pretty simple. Put it in a deal. I mean, it was almost just data transfer is all it really was. And I'm like, compared to a ranch where you got to figure budgets. Not only that, you have to have some knowledge, right? Like, do I intervene with this heifer and this cow right now, or do I give her another hour or two, to because he's not quite nourished now, but from past experiences, I go mess with her and shake everything up, then it turns into a mess. But sometimes you wait another hour and it sucks. I mean, all these things that have to come in. Should I feed them? Should we be moving them? Should this or that? There's so much more. No, there's plant because you deal with machinery, animals, cattle, shoeing stuff, fixing things, fence, irrigating, water. It's just crazy. But yeah, it's way more than, I mean, brain scientists, to me, I'm not saying we're smarter than them, but they do like one or two things, right? They work in the brain. And like you're working with this cow and like you said, goats or sheep and horses and pickups. And no, dude, it's a lot of things. And you can't know it all. That's the biggest thing I had is I thought I had to know it all. And you can't. There's just too much to know about things, and you got to ask somebody else and have some people in your corner to help you. So yeah, for sure. It's a rough occupation. So
yeah, yeah. Well, I guess that comes back to what we talked about earlier, right? Get that experience, find a mentor, go work for somebody for free, um, spend a season somewhere as an intern, find out and make sure, it is something that you enjoy doing, you want to do. And you're not gonna learn it in a classroom.
yeah.
Like those things that you talked about, when to intervene, when to hold off. That's more of a feel, and that comes from experience. One of my mentors told me, I can't teach experience. I can teach you a lot of things, but experience is, you're just gonna have to get bucked off. You're gonna have to get punched in the face a few times and learn that, because until you appreciate that, then maybe your eyes will be open, and then you'll start to see. And wisdom is gained when you learn from the experience of others who've gone before. But at some point, we're gonna get on and get bucked off. We're gonna not warm up that cold enough before we step on and figure out, well,
Yeah,
that's
sure.
that's why he did it that way. But
Yeah, for sure.
I'd love to have well, let me just bring this full circle. Shane, it's been great to visit with you here. Appreciate you sharing your expertise, your knowledge, and your experience.
Yeah.
And with just kind of with where we're at right now in farming and ranching and agriculture. Um, they say that with AI and all the things that are going to be changing, there's going to be more changes in the next 5 years than in all human history up to this point. Um, so we think about, 2030, what are things going to look like? I don't think that, well, I imagine Shane's going to be out there cowboying in 2030. Um, he may have some
Probably.
things, he may have some different things going on technology wise. Virtual fencing is one big change in the industry. Are cowboys ever going to be replaced? Probably not. Are Who knows? bottom line is I think God gave us stewardship, and we know that cattle can be a way of regenerating landscapes on a large scale. Um, I think there's some things in our favor that say um, our industry will continue through these technological changes. Will it look different? No doubt it will. I can't even begin to imagine, what 2030, which is only 5 years away, what that's going to look like if what they're saying is true. Um, all that to say, uh, I do believe that this industry will prevail. This industry, meaning agriculture, right? We're still going to need to be stewards of the land. And we have the choice, do we embrace technology? Do we resist technology? What works for us? What do we want to what do we want to do? Um, Probably part of the reason, that it is in our blood is there's the culture aspect of it. And there's the camaraderie, there's the parts of that I think people will continue to crave. And it may be that, and I think for some ranches it already is, that cows are the side business, that providing the experience that people want when they're in this AI driven world. Um, that may be what we're marketing. Who knows? And that's not right.
Yeah, it could be. I can see, for one thing, that I noticed the differences between like the ranchers and like I'm gonna say dairymen because I work with a lot of them. Is
Mm-hmm.
they're always, I would say, I don't know a different word to put it, but like progressive. Like anything new, they'll take a shot at it, see how it works. Like add something, they'll try this mineral or they'll try this on their cows to see. But they kind of get instant results, right? Through the milk tank. But
Yeah.
I've noticed with cow guys, it's usually always kind of sluggish and put offish and oh, that doesn't work here, and they've never really tried it. And to me, I could see those electric collars. I would jump on right now if it wasn't cost prohibitive. I'd be all over it. If I could figure out, dude, it would be hugely beneficial, especially for Western rangelands. I think it'd be huge. Get rid of the fences on our range. I mean, could you imagine that? Not or just a perimeter fence. And I'm like, could you even imagine and control those cattle quite a bit better? But yeah. So those changes, I would say embrace them, try them. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work. Don't spend a bunch of money on them. But if you can make, don't get crazy and like go into debt trying to make some of this stuff work. But yeah, I would say go for them. And you're right, it'll be a different world for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. But kind of like everything, the change from the horse and buggy to the automobile was a huge change, and then to flight. And think about all the things that my grandpa saw in his 97 years of life between 1900 and 1997. Um, Huge technological advancements, but we're going to see that accelerated. Um, so hopefully we'll still be able to continue to put out podcasts. We'll still continue to to heal landscapes with livestock and ride horses and do those things that we enjoy and raise our family here. But Shane, any final thoughts that you have before we log off for the day?
Not really. Just chase your dreams, I guess. Go get it.
Like it. Yeah. Yeah. Chase your dreams. Good way to end.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, Shane, we sure appreciate you being on the Profitable Steward podcast. You can catch, so we're going to be rolling more of these interview type podcasts out. That's something that our audience has asked for, besides the regular webinars that are more presentation style. So we'll do the regular webinars, stay on the same cadence of the second and fourth Thursdays of every month, and then we'll just scatter these in kind of as we um, get them produced, and they'll go right to our podcast channel. So for those that are listening, help us spread the word. We're almost 30,000 downloads. We're at 54. I guess this will be our 56th podcast episode. And it's been neat to see how far and wide it's gone. We started 2 years ago. We had no idea what this was going to be, and it's evolved into something pretty cool. So you can do your part by sharing it and sharing it on social media, liking it, commenting, all those things that get the algorithm to push it further to those that are looking for this. So thanks everybody for listening, and thanks again, Shane.